Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you for being here. I sincerely thank EC Council for putting this series together. The coordination, the platform behind it, it doesn't happen by accident, and so I'm grateful to be a part of this. Quickly about me, my foundation was built at Morgan State University and Villanova University, but the real education came from the work itself. Over the past 20 years plus, I've lived in the proactive and reactive world, which includes incident response, governance, risk, compliance, and digital forensics, delivering proactive and reactive services for Fortune 50, 100, and 500 companies, and keeping them compliant with regulations that govern our world: GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, SOX, and ISO 27001. You'll see a wall of certifications here. They span executive leadership, like my CISO and the CISM, governance through C-Risk and the CGEIT, and the emerging frontier of AI governance with my AIGP and the ISO 42001 lead auditor credentials, because that future is being written now, and I intend to help write it responsibly. I share that not to impress you, but to assure you that what I'm about to discuss isn't theory, it's lived experience. And so with that being said, let's get into this whole topic of AI and incident response. Well, I'll start with why this all matters. The regulatory pressure, financial exposure, and board accountability that moved AI risk from a someday problem to a right now problem. From there, we'll map the AI risk landscape into 6 expanding threat categories you can see laid out in that visual: malicious use, system failures, misuse and abuse, societal impact, and emerging risks, all orbiting the AI systems at the center. Then we get practical with NIST, AI Risk Management Framework, which is the govern, map, measure, and manage, and the ISO IEC 42001, the first certifiable AI management system standard, where governance stops being just a buzzword and becomes auditable. We'll bring it home to healthcare with HIPAA in the AI context. We'll get into the the PHI obligations, the business associate agreements, and de-identification and breach notifications. We'll close out with the incident response and the roadmap forward, how to actually detect, contain, investigate, report, remediate, and mature your program over time. Notice that the landscape is built on governance, safety by design, transparency, human oversight, education, and collaboration, because the goal isn't fear, it's resilience. The future is in our hands, so let's get to work. AI is a tool, not a human. Its power is defined by the guardrails we build around it, not just its capacity for speed. We love to measure AI by speed, right? How fast it writes, how much it actually analyzes. But the speed alone isn't strength. A car without brakes isn't powerful, it's dangerous. The real power comes from the guardrails, the governance and controls we build around the tool. And that's what turns raw capability into something we can trust in a hospital, a bank, or even in a courtroom. That lighthouse over the data, it's no accident. AI is the vast churning ocean. We are the lighthouse. Our job isn't to slow the tide, but to guide it safely to the shore. So keep that in mind as we kind of discuss everything today. Every framework and control we discuss is a guardrail, and the guardrails are what make the power worth having. So why does this all matter? Because AI governance has crossed the line. It's gone from optional best practice to enforceable expectation. And the 4 sources are driving that urgency. We first get into the regulation, right? Regulation is arriving. The EU AI Act is already in force with tiered obligations based at the risk level. And it's not just Europe, it's US state laws in Colorado, California, Texas, and many other states. Plus sector guidance from the HHS and NIST are hardening into real expectations with real financial penalties. The second is the cost of the failure, right, which is rising. AI amplified breaches are now averaging $4.9 million. It's about 9.3% higher than the non-AI incidents. And that's before you add bias, litigation, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. That's compounding exposure your board can no longer ignore. The board and customer scrutiny is also intensifying, right? We see procurement questionnaires now asking about AI governance and controls. Boards want CISO and CRO sign off before any deployments. Auditors and insurers are asking for AI risk evidence before approvals move forward. And in fact, 82% of boards are already asking these questions now. And fourth, adoption is outrunning the governance. Generative AI is being deployed in clinical, financial, and HR settings 3.2 times faster over year, faster than governance can actually keep up. And so that gap has a name, shadow AI. And this is the unsanctioned model used without BAAs or controls. And we'll talk a little bit about those a little bit later. This is the #1 governance gap heading into 2027, 2028. And so we put those four forces together, and the message is extremely simple. The time to build your guardrails isn't later, it's now. So what is actually the AI risk landscape? AI opens up 6 attack surfaces our old frameworks never planned for. The first 4 are actually deliberate attacks. The last 2 are actually baked in. And so picture one self-driving car attacks 6 different ways. And so think about that for a second, right? If we have a car, right, and we tampered the input that fools the model, we actually would have a major concern. Researchers stuck a few stickers on a real stop sign and the car read speed limit 45. And so the defense here, or how we would mitigate that adversarial attack or any tampering of a file, we would need more training, right? We would need to understand the input validation. But it doesn't stop there, right? If we were to look at data poisoning, imagine with the same example, we actually corrupted the training data and it learns wrong from day one. So for example, Microsoft Tate's chatbot learned from Twitter and got flooded with hate. And one was pulling over within 24 hours. And so we see that corrupting the data could lead to various different types of attacks. And so we would need to validate the data, and we also would need to check the model as well. The third is what we call model inversion. This is typically where the attacker never touches you, right? Just queries and watches you. Researchers reconstructed recognizable faces from a facial recognition model, but the patient data actually changed, right? And so we need to make sure that the privacy has not been tampered, and we also want to ensure that we're limiting who actually has access to the model. We also have prompt injection, the one keeping me up at night, right? So these are hidden instructions that hijack the actual model. Like a note on the dashboard saying, ignore all road signs. Researchers hid commands in a web page, and Bing's AI obeyed the attacker, not the user. And so here, how we can mitigate this particular concern is input sanitization and reviewing the output controls of the model. We also have what we call bias and discrimination, right? So typically here, there's no attacker. We just build this into the actual model. So if a car trained only on highways, it would fail on city streets. Amazon's hiring tool learned from mostly male resumes and downgraded anything saying women's. And so obviously here, one way we can mitigate is the fairness audits, right? Or with a fairness audit. We also would look at the impact testing, right? And so are we actually biased, or do we have a motive behind the model? And then we have supply chain risk, right? And this is the risk that you typically would be inheriting. Let's just say you bought a car and the third party has a defect nobody disclosed. Research uploaded a tampered model, poisoned GPT to a public hub, and passed it to every check. And so here we will be reviewing vendor agreements and model vetting. So said a lot of detail here, but this is kind of what we're seeing as a whole with the AI risk landscape. The model is the new attack surface. Protecting it takes strategy, not just a firewall. So where does risk actually live in the AI system, right? It lives everywhere. Risk compounds at every stage of the life cycle. So controls can't just sit at the finish line. They have to be embedded end to end across 5 stages. Let's walk through them. Let's start with the data, all right? So why does this matter? Because everything downstream inherits whatever you start with. The risks here are typically the sourcing and consent, poisoning, quality and bias, and PII exposures. And so the fix here would be know exactly where your data actually came from and prove you had the right to use it. Now, once the data is in hand, the choices you make lock in risk. That will be what we call the design. What shows up here is the model selection bias, explainability gaps, and intended use drift and scope creep. And so here we'll be looking at upfront what the model is actually used for, document those choices, and assign someone to own them. Now that brings us to where the emerging risk creeps in, right? So what is it, right? It's training vulnerabilities, evaluation gaps, hardening the failures, and IP leakage. And so the mitigation strategy here will be attacking your own model before someone else does. This is what we call proactive testing, or perhaps even utilizing a tabletop strategy. And review the code like security depends on it, because it does. Now, the moment it goes live, new doors will open. That's what we call the deployment phase. And what opens up here is the integration failures, access control gaps, and approval bias, which is what we call prompt injection. And so to mitigate this is control who can actually touch this, right? Filter what puts this out and make sure nothing ships without sign off, right? So before we deploy anything out, we need to have a very pristine cadence as to how that actually works. And finally, the work doesn't stop at launch. That's the monitoring phase. And this emerges over time. Model drift, abuse and misuse, performance decay, and regulatory changes. And so the fix here would be to watch how we've deployed this continuously, catch anything that starts to slip, and know when it's time to retire it. Governance isn't a gate you pass through it at deployment. It's a thread that runs through the entire life of the system. Miss a stage, and the risk actually doesn't disappear, it waits for you downstream. So what did the numbers actually tell us, right? Let me put some hard data behind everything we've been discussing so far, because this isn't theoretical anymore. It's all live, right? So 73% of enterprises have already reported an AI-related security incident. And so if you think it hasn't reached us yet, the odds say it has, you just haven't caught it. And so what does one cost typically cost? $4.4 million is the global average or the cost of a data breach. And that's just the number that gets into the boardroom's, attention. And then from there, one thing that worries me the most is only 33% of organizations have a fully operational AI governance program. That's 2/3 are playing a defense without a playbook. And the attackers aren't standing still. 1 in 6 breaches now involve attackers using AI themselves, mostly for phishing and deepfakes. But these tools we're racing to adopt are being turned against us, right? And so the trend is really the reported AI incidents have climbed roughly, 11-fold since 2019, but the curve is still bending upward. And so here's the key takeaway here: incidents are up, costs are real, and governance is certainly lagging far behind. The gap is exactly what we're trying to close here. And so overall, 33% is an astounding number, but we have a lot of work to do. So what is NIST AI RMF? Right? So this is NIST AI Risk Management Framework is a voluntary set of guidelines from the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology for managing AI risk across the full life cycle. 4 continuous functions: govern, culture and accountability, map, context and risks, measure, assesses and tracking, and manage. And this is acting on what you find. Not one-time checklist, but a wheel that keeps turning because the risks keep changing. And so govern is the hub, right? So this is typically where your policies, accountability, and oversight across everything lie, right? So we get into the risk appetite, we get into the board accountability. That's AI policy. If this isn't solid, nothing else will hold. Then we move on to the map, which is where we identify the risk, right? Purpose, the environment, users, impact, the use case inventory, stakeholder analysis, trust boundaries, and you can't imagine what you haven't mapped. Then we get into the measuring component, which puts numbers behind those risks, right? So we get into the bias and the audits. How robust is our testing? explainability, scoring, red teaming. Keep in mind, evidence has no assumptions, right? So we have to have numbers that can qualify what we're seeing. We get into the managing component, right? And this is what we're acting on, right? The treatment decisions, the incident response plans, continuous improvement, strategy becomes our action. And so overall, we have to govern, map, measure, and manage. 4 functions, 1 continuous loop, and the outcome is trustworthy AI. So what is ISO IEC 42001? This is the first international standard for AI management system, and the keyword is certifiable. Unlike a voluntary framework, you can be independently audited against it. And that's what signals trust to regulators, customers, and insurers. Think of it as a AI sibling to ISO 27001, same plan, do, check, act rigor applied to AI. So what does it actually require? So there is 6 core elements, right? So the first is the AI policy and objectives. And this is typically where we define the AI purpose, the scope, the principles, and the measurable governance objectives. Vague intentions don't pass an audit. We have to keep that in mind. Second is risk and impact assessment. This is a systematic evaluation of the AI risks and their impact on individuals, society, and the impact, not just the business and the people. We then get into the roles and accountability. This is the clear ownership at every level, right? So the executive sponsorship, AI ownership, data stewardship, no orphan systems. We then move to the operational controls. This is the lifecycle controls from the data governance through model design, deployment gates, and monitoring and retirement, the whole life of the system. Then we have the continual improvement. This is where the internal audits live, management reviews, and corrective action loops tied to the real metrics. And the standard expects you to get better over time, not just stay stagnant, right? So we do have some gaps. 6 months later, or even a year later, we wouldn't expect to see the same gaps still present. And then we move into the documentation and the evidence. And this is typically where all of our auditable records lie, right? Our model cards, our risk assessments, our decision logs. And so if we can't show it, you didn't do it, right? And we do see a lot of organizations say that, well, yes, we've gone through the whole rigor, but they don't have any documentation, right? So we want to make sure that we have something documented. So the bottom line is NIST tells you how to think about AI risk. ISO 42001 lets you prove you're managing it. With a certificate, an auditor will stand behind it. And that's the difference between saying you're responsible and you're just demonstrating it. So how do these 3 frameworks fit together, right? So we've covered NIST, we've covered ISO 42001, and we also get now to the HIPAA context. But let me line them up side by side, because people often ask, which one do I need? The answer is usually all 3, right? They all do different jobs. But NIST, again, is a voluntary framework. ISO 42001 is certifiable standard, right? It's a certifiable standard. Those are the key differences. HIPAA is a binding regulation. And so one is advice, one is a credential, and one is the law, right? So that's how you can kind of clearly delineate between those. Now look at the scope. NIST covers all AI systems and risk types. ISO 42001 covers your AI management system. Then we have HIPAA. HIPAA covers protected health information, both in traditional and AI contexts. So who actually issued these? So NIST comes from the US government. ISO 42001 is international, and HIPAA comes from the US Health and Human Services. So your footprint and your industry decide which one applies. Their core models also differ. NIST runs on a govern, map, measure, manage process. ISO 42001 uses a plan, do, check, act process. HIPAA is now built on the privacy, security, and breaches rules. But there's a real difference, which is the enforcement. NIST is a reference only. Nobody finds you. ISO 42001 is third-party audited and certifiable. HIPAA has teeth, penalties up to 1.9 million per year, and that's the column that changes the behavior. And finally, they are all AI specific. NIST, yes, built for AI and machine learning risk. ISO, yes, for the management system. HIPAA only partially where PHI and AI intersect. So here's the key takeaway. These aren't competing choices, they are layers. NIST tells you how to think. ISO lets you prove it in granular detail, and HIPAA sets the legal floor. And so stacking all three of these together, you've built a defensible audit-ready posture that satisfies regulators, clients, and cyber insurers alike. So what happens when AI touches healthcare data, right? And so the moment an AI system touches protected health information, HIPAA's privacy, security, and breach rules apply in full. AI gets no exemption. That leaves you with 4 obligations. The first is how much data can you even use, right? So the minimum necessary. So use only the PHI strictly required to train or run the model, and document why. No feeding in the whole patient database just in case. Then the moment the data leaves your hands, the rules follow it. This is typically where the business associated agreements come into play. Every AI vendor or model host handling PHI must sign a BAA before any data moves. No signed BAA, no transfer, full stop. Better yet, strip the identity out before it ever moves. And this will be called de-identification. Apply safe harbor or expert determination first, but there's an AI twist. You have to explicitly assess re-identification risk, because generative models can reconstruct what you thought was stripped out in the beginning. And finally, you have to prove it all, right? Access and audit controls. Log which models, users, processes touch PHI and when. Under the security rule, AI interference logs count as access records. The machine is auditable as well. So think about it. So why does all of this matter, right? So penalties run up to $2 million per violation, category per year. And once a breach hits, you only have 60 days to notify. So the clock starts whether you're ready or not. In healthcare, AI governance isn't separate from compliance. It is compliance. Treat any model touching PHI exactly like any other system handling patient data would, because legally, that's what it is. So we always get into the big question as to, well, who owns AI risk, right? We get into a pointing game. And so I usually hear the phrase everyone, right? Usually that means no one. Accountable governance is the first thing every framework demands, and the first thing auditors will check. So let's kind of review some of these names. So first, we start at the top, right? So the board and executives, they set the risk appetite, they approve the AI policy, and they sign off on deployments before they go live. The buck always will stop here. Right alongside them, there typically is an AI governance committee. This is the engine in the room, right? AI intake, use case reviews, exceptions, and keeping the inventory and the risk register current. One step out, the guardrail setters is our risk, legal, and compliance team. They typically map obligations, they lead impact assessments, and they review the contracts under high scrutiny. And they also handle most of the data. They keep you on the right side of the law, right? So we certainly want to make sure that they are engaged. Down on the technical side is our data science and engineering folks. They build into the standards, right? They document the models and data, they implement controls, and they also escalate risks. Governance has to live in the code, right? So we need to make sure our technical teams are kind of in the loop and understand expectations. Guarding the perimeter is our security and privacy teams, right? So threat modeling, access controls, PHI and PI safeguards, incident response. And this is where the attack surface gets defended. And at the front line is our business and end users, right? They deploy within the boundaries, complete AI literacy, training, and report anomalies. Governance only works if we get the buy-in from these guys, right? And so the bottom line is these 3 lines of defense: operational ownership first, risk oversight second, and independent assurance third. When every role knows its line, AI risk becomes something you can actually govern, right? And typically, if we don't follow this cadence, you will have major gaps. And so what happens when an AI system goes wrong, right? So traditional incident response was never built for model drift, right? Adversarial abuse or harmful outputs. You need a playbook made for AI incidents that runs in 5 phases. First, you have to know something is wrong, right? So how are we detecting something bad is happening, right? There may be some anomaly alert, some type of output monitoring, abuse pattern recognition, drift thresholds, right? You can't respond to what you can't see. Then you stop the bleeding, right? So how do we actually contain what we're seeing, right? How do we isolate the model? How do we revoke the inference access? How do we halt harmful outputs? And how can we preserve the forensic state? And so we want to limit the blast radius first. Now, once it's actually contained, we need to find out what happened, right? And so how are we investigating? What cadence is actually followed to understand the root cause? How is data and prompt auditing upheld rather? How are we, reviewing the behavior of the incident? Do we have a scope to determine, right? And are we utilizing a playbook? So we need to understand what and how before you say it worked. And then we need to tell who needs to know, right? So we should be creating some type of not an after action report, but we should have a in-service report so that perhaps we have to notify OCR if PHI was a hit. We need to brief executives. We need to loop in legal. And we also need to notify affected parties. Remember that 60-day clock is real. And this is typically where it ticks. And finally, we close the loop, right? So how do we remediate, right? How do we retrain or retire the model that's not living up to our expectations? How do we harden the controls? How do we update our playbooks? Are we running a post-incident audit? And so we're not just recovering, but we're trying to come back stronger. Another key point is when the board asks, will this happen again? We need to have something to provide them, right? Some definitive statement or action item that will kind of satisfy the requirement. Speed is everything, right? So we need to define our playbooks, escalation paths, and our regulatory context before an actual incident actually happens, not during one. And so keep in mind, this is the proactive mindset. A lot of organizations don't see everything from a proactive mindset. They're more reactive. We do things backwards, right? We're waiting on the inevitable to happen, but we don't have real up-to-date, strategic playbooks that can be utilized on the fly. And so moving from the incident, we also have regulators, right? So, and this is a very heavy topic because regulators need to see something, right? But here's the good news. Across NIST, ISO, HIPAA, and the EU AI Act, supervisors all converge on the same 6 capabilities, right? And so basically, if you learn these 6 capabilities, you will typically be in a very good place. First is the accountable governance, right? And so this is where named AI owners at every level are named or recognized. We also have board accountability, goes across all 3 lines of defense, and it has to be documented and auditable, not just understood, right? So the key takeaway here is we have to be accountable, right? We have to have the governance. Then risk assessments, right? Risks have to be mapped. They have to be measured and managed across the life cycle, tied to a documented risk appetite approach, a living practice, not a one-time exercise. Next is transparency in our records, right? And so we have model cards, data inventories, decision logs. Regulators review the evidence, not verbal assurances. If you can't show it, you didn't do it. Then we have data protection, right? And this is PHI and PI safeguards, de-identification, executed BAAs, minimum necessary controls. Everything from HIPAA slide now made probable, right? And so we need to make sure that we have these documented. 5th is the incident readiness, right? Documented, tested playbooks with a escalation path, regulator contacts, breaches reported on time. And remember that 60-day clock, regulators will review that as well. And finally, continuous monitoring, right? And this is the ongoing bias, drift, misuse testing, logged and acted upon with retirement criteria set before deployment. Governance that keeps breathing after launch, right? And so the bottom line here is if we're able to demonstrate these 6 items with audible evidence. It's the difference between a defensible program and a regulatory finding. The only question is whether you have it ready before they ask. So where do you go from here, right? So everything we've covered comes down to one honest question. How mature is your AI governance today? Most organizations start at the bottom, and the goal is a repeatable, audited, continuously improving program. However, there are 4 stages to find yourself, to see where you are. So when we think about, our maturity, we always will start at stage 1, right? And I think most organizations will always start at stage 1, depending on how mature we are. And this is what we call the Ad-Hoc stage, right? And so shadow AI, no policy, purely reactive. Everything we do is reactive. The risk here is invisible and unmanaged. If you don't know how many AI tools are running in your organization right now, this is typically where you are, right? And that's okay, as long as you don't stay at this level, right? Stage 2 is define, right? So now that we have policies drafted, great, good job. The AI inventory is built, owners are actually named, and controls are in place so that we can start to emerge. You stop the guessing work. You know what you have and who's responsible for it. So that's where, a whole lot better than stage 1, where we are more defined. Stage 3 is managed. And this is where risk assessments, monitoring, and incident response playbooks are actually in operation. This is where governance is running day to day, not just sitting on a piece of paper. Most mature programs aim to live here. And then we have stage 4, and this is typically where we are optimized, right? We have ISO 14001, Certifiable. We have independently been audited, and we are continuously improving. And this is the summit where governance is provable, right? Not just present. And this is also where we can stand in front of any regulator, client, or insurer with confidence. So you don't have to leap to the top tomorrow, right? You just have to take each step by step. Find your stage honestly, and then move one rung up, right? That's how unmanaged risk becomes governed. Defensible program, one deliberate stage at a time. And so if you forget everything that has been shared today, let me bring it all home. 1, AI multiplies risk, right? Adversarial attacks, data poisoning, model inversion, prompt injection. These are all new categories of harm. Your traditional controls, right? Your traditional controls are never built to catch these particular types of attacks. The attack surface is fundamentally different now. 2, the frameworks converge, right? So NIST, ISO 14001, and HIPAA all demand the same core: governance, documented risk assessments, lifecycle controls, auditable evidence. They all don't compete, they reinforce each other. 3 is governance is non-negotiable, right? There's just no way around it. We need named owners. We have to have good board oversight. We need to have documented policies. And that's just the baseline regulators will check first before any conversation about technical controls even begins. 4, we need to be incident ready, right? We should have pre-built playbooks, escalation paths, and regulator contacts that can be controlled in a crisis environment. They also have to be defensible, and we need to have timely responses. And so we need to build and test them before you actually need them. And 5, maturity is a journey. We always need to move deliberately from an ad hoc approach to a more of an optimized approach. Document every step with confidence, with your evidence, and also trail your progress, right? Because that also matters to regulators as much as you would ultimately plan or think. And so here's my closing thoughts, right? Remember where you started. AI is a tool. Its power is defined by the guardrails, right? We build around everything around it, right? Everything today was about guardrails. You don't have to build them all overnight. You just have to start. So thank you. And with that, I'll open it up with questions. Thank you all for spending this time with me today. I'll just just add this in there as well. Thank you, EC Council, for hosting this Cyber Talk series with me, and I look forward to the upcoming series. Yes and yes. I think anybody in school or aspiring to get into the cyber AI realm or career, yes, learn as much AI as possible. It is embedded in, I would almost say, in 98% of most of the roles available today. So yes, it is a skill that is necessary. I do think it kind of spans beyond the engineering teams. It's going to span in all sectors of all roles. That's a question that you would really work with your board, right? They have a standard or a, how can I say? They have a framework. Most boards have a framework that they're usually looking at, right? And you will basically be aligning the appropriate framework to their expectations. So for example, if you're using like the NIST RMF, that organization is probably more focused on risks versus to just a general governance framework, right? So it's going to, there's not like a one size fits all framework. You really have to tailor which framework is suitable for that environment, right? Are we highly regulated? This is like a pharmaceutical, we're going to be extremely regulated, right? Because we have sensitive data. We probably are also looping in like GDPR and other frameworks that will complement that as well. So it just really depends on the industry and the expectations from the board, right? What is their main objective that we're pushing? And then you would map to the appropriate framework. Yes, there are several organizations that have already automated AI into their ecosystem, their AI or their incident response ecosystem. It just really depends on how far you're pushing it, right? Are we completely automated, or we still have human in the loop interaction? So it just really depends. I think from a strategic perspective, yes, you should be utilizing AI to the 10th degree. Think about back in the days when your regular analysts would actually review, we call it eyes on glass, just reviewing those logs. It would take forever, right? And if we're going through a major attack, we need that response process faster. So yes, I certainly seeing a lot of organizations utilizing AI frameworks. They're integrating into their automation, and we're seeing a huge ROI with using the AI models as a whole. Absolutely. And again, this is where the human in the loop comes into play, right? Management still has to review that the appropriate actions are taking place, right? For example, we've created a rule within our SIM environment, and AI is actually responding to that rule for us, right? Which reason why we don't need a SOC analyst. But we still need somebody to determine, is the model picking up the rule set? Is it actually responding like it's supposed to? And if there is hallucination, or it's not picking up, or we see some type of drift, or it's not responding to the right rule, that's a problem, right? Because we could be putting the whole organization at risk. So yes, there will always be managerial intervention and review. But again, this is where the proactive side comes in, right? You should be, kind of testing or utilizing like a structured walkthrough with each tool. We need to make sure that the tool is actually doing what it's supposed to do. Everybody's responsible. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've heard, right? And I actually had a slide on that. Everybody is responsible to a certain degree, but there's only a handful who are actually remediating the issue or responding to the issue or building a framework to resolve the issue. I do think that there's not enough training for the AI governance spectrum. I think it's a little ambiguous when people say, yes, we have AI governance, but then I ask a follow-up question is, who's responsible for it, right? And they said, well, we don't have that one person, right, to actually understand what's been fed into the model. right? Is it sensitive information that's being fed into the model? Where does that data go? Nobody's able to answer that question. So again, when I hear people say everybody's responsible, but then I follow up to say, well, who is actually putting in the right controls? What type of risk treatment processes do we have in place if something leaks out? And it's crickets, right? So that's a great question, but that is why we're here today, right? Is to kind of discuss those gaps with AI governance. Yeah, I think what's going to happen early 2027, maybe even touching 2028, I think they will try to regulate the usage of AI as a whole. Right now, we're kind of in the wild, to say the speak. It's almost as if everybody is using it in the best way that they think is best to use, right? There's really no regulatory obligation to using it. So I do think in the upcoming years, it will be strictly regulated. I think we will have laws in place that potentially could control how we're using it for different sectors, right? So if you're in the energy sector, how are you using AI? These are our standards that you need to be using it. If you're in retail, this is how you're going to use AI. And pharmaceuticals, same thing, right? You're going to see different sectors. The government will try to mandate. Don't know if it's going to work, but I think they will try, certainly. Tabletops. And the reason why I always start with tabletops is because most organizations don't want to spend any extra dollars if they don't have to, right? Everyone's looking for a discount. And so traditionally, tabletops will explore the gaps, right? We can create tabletops that are AI focused that will kind of explore and determine whether gaps exist or how ready are we if we're seeing a prompt injection attack or a deepfake. It's the easiest way to take it a step further. Pen testing also does the trick as well. There's a plethora of tools I love to use with several clients just to see what is your maturity, how are we able to respond to this particular attack. So there's several proactive ways that we can determine how ready we are. It just really comes down to, is that a top priority for the organization, right? And again, that's the proactive mentality. The reactive side of it is we'll just wait until something bad happens and then we'll think about a strategy to mitigate this, right? And I've run through this several times, many organizations over the years. This has never happened to us. So we won't worry about this until something bad happens. Something happens and the impact is so great. And now you're calling in advisory teams who charge anything per hour to remediate the issue. So I said a lot, but basically it's just really getting the proactive mentality first, right? Tabletops, structured walkthroughs, there is tool reviews, there's several services that we can ensure and make sure that you are ready for any major attack. And I have to applaud that question because that comes up a lot. Before we even get to what should happen first, we need to examine our roles and responsibilities. That is number one. Who do I have on my team that I could appoint to be in a governance, or sit at a governance capacity? Typically, this is at the legal compliance CISO level. They will come together and try to determine who would that appropriate person be. Sometimes even somebody on the C-suite level. Who could we put on this team or level? So that's the first point. Once we have identified a person or a team, we then put structure together. What are we governing, right? What are our key priorities, right? And so we think about AI, it's basically just adding to what we already have, right? So just think about AI, we're just adding more muscle to the same approach that we already have. So if we are highly regulated, AI is going to intensify that even more, right? There's more controls, more guardrails that we need to include since we're utilizing tool A, B, and C. So again, if I had to have one thing, it would be first understanding who is going to be appointing the team, and then two, the roles and responsibilities of that governance team or person. Training. I can't emphasize that enough. Training, learn as much as you can about AI. learn about how AI is impacting your unique sector. And again, we talked about different types of sectors, but learn how AI could be impacting your sector and learn as much as you can, right? The learning should never stop. If you are looking to get certified in AI, right, understand what that looks like, right? Would that be something that we would actually consider? What are the pros and cons? Do we have the capability to get certified? Is it necessary for our unique sector? And is our board, our leadership, what is their main initiatives for the upcoming year? Is it AI focused? Or is it more or less kind of like a hobby or a fad, right? So, we're going to allow staff to use it for email and, ABC, graphic generation or whatever. They have to kind of set that expectation, and that should trickle down, right? The waterfall approach. But if we don't have that expectation, then we'll be ad hoc. And you remember the slide that I showed that talked about the maturity. We will be operating basically at a tier 1-0 or 0-1 ad hoc, where we don't really have anything defined, how we're using the tool. It's kind of like we just want to make people happy. They can use the tool, but we're not really understanding the risks, right? That come with that. So that probably the easiest way that I would approach that. I just want to say thank you all for joining me today to discuss this unbelievable topic on, AI governance, incident response. You can never have enough training, right? And obviously, I look forward to speaking to you guys on LinkedIn if you have any additional questions. August 19th, we will be discussing governance frameworks in more granular detail, the control design, policies, risk registers, and the oversight model. So I look forward to you guys joining on August 19th for our next session. So thank you EC Council. You guys have been great putting this together. I know there's a lot of work in the background for these series that you guys are putting together. So thank you, and thank you all.